Welcome, everyone, to the Rich in Purpose Childhood Trauma Summit. As this interview progresses, you might see me looking down or reading. It's because so I don't make mistakes. But welcome to Erica Bonham. She's our guest speaker today, and she's a licensed professional counselor, certified EMDR clinician, consultant, and trainer, nervous system regulation and wisdom coach. And if that's not enough, she's also the best-selling author of her new book, Always Enough, Never Done. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm honored and humbled and excited to be here. Yeah, thanks.
Well, my pleasure, and we're so eager for our audience to get all the knowledge that you have. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I know that you're really passionate about leadership, changing leadership. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I think even if we're not a CEO or a manager, all of us are in leadership in some way, whether we're a parent or we're in our communities or we're just friends, right? Even if we're just showing up in relationship and in community. And oftentimes, I think unhealed, traumatized systems, they thwart our ability to show up in our fullest expression. And so I really kind of expand the definition of leadership, right? We often think of people in business leadership or whatever, but really most of us are in leadership roles in some way. And when we are unhealed, when we have undigested wounding, undigested grief, undigested trauma, it thwarts our ability to shine our light in the world, to stand in our full power, and to show up with big open hearts, but also our ferocity, right? Our ability to have healthy boundaries and to stand firm, and not just what we're fighting against, but what we're fighting for. What are the lives and the collective vision that we are wanting to create? And when we don't look at our stuff, we don't get to do that. So that's kind of my thinking around leadership and why I'm so passionate, because the world needs us here right now.
And you're so right. And, the one thing I like that you put in there, that we're leaders, in a group, there's always got to be a leader, or you just never get started. Right. So, I think that it's great that you practice on leadership. And again, as being a childhood trauma person, we do get stuck. What are we going to do today? Who's going to lead? And then all of a sudden we find that we want to get somewhere, but we're not there yet. And that's why I'm just so passionate about helping people that experience childhood trauma and addictions. And I'm so excited to have experts like yourself here too, because we all have different areas that we're stuck in. And I would like for you, to kind of go over some of the questions that that you cover in your new book, because I'm excited about reading it. But when we were talking about it, there was always some of the little nugget that I thought that would be really good for you to cover. And one of them is what is some of the points that you feel so passionate about, especially for self-affirmations. I know I do a lot of self-affirmations, and there is a limit to what we can do with self-affirmations. I attract a lot with self-affirmations.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But sometimes I don't know for sure if I'm changing my life with self-affirmations. There's always that little bit of, okay, have I really changed in the way I manage money, or have I really changed in the confidence level that I have just by saying that I'm better with money, and just by saying that I'm better with my confidence. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So one of my little catchphrases, or one of the points in the book, is that you can't self-affirmation your way through trauma. And what I mean by that is not that I'm advocating for throwing a self-affirmation practice out completely, but what I think trauma what real trauma healing and transformation requires is for us to go down and toward and in and through, right? Like there's a common phrase in the therapy world, like the only way out is through. You can't go around, you can't go over, you got to go through it. And self-affirmations, when they're used in a maybe more hollow way, or in a way that is sort of floating away from the shadow, or floating away from the pain, not really addressing what has happened, not addressing the patterns that are stored as a result of trauma that's happened, then it can tend to be almost like a dissociative practice. You know, you're sitting there sort of neurotically repeating, like, I am good enough, I am okay as I am lovable, blah, blah, blah. But you're not actually looking at the wound, the wounded part of what really needs to be looked at. And so what I talk about in the book is I talk about both a descending path and an ascending path. And descending path work is the down and dirty, right? It's the down and in and toward and through. It's the looking at the pain. It's the digestion. It's the composting. It's the not so pretty parts of us, of what has happened to us. You know, we have parts that hold the wound, and we have parts that hold the protectors. So we tend to, our protectors often are our critics, our judgers, our doers. Our addictions can be protectors, right?
Right.
But then we look underneath that and we look at a very wounded part, and those parts hold dependency or loneliness or fear or terror or shame. And if self-affirmation in and of itself is really trying to change the thinking and really change the subconscious mind, but that happens up here. That happens in the thinking part of the brain. And that is just not where trauma is stored in the brain and in the body. The trauma is stored in the lower levels, in the survival part of the brain. And so we really need a bottom up, a body up process to digest and heal. And self-affirmation tends to be a top down, where we're trying to convince ourselves of something. Now, ascending path work is maybe a more embodied sense of like stepping into your new chapter, stepping into your new identity, stepping into the energy of I am enough as I am lovable as I am. But what I would advocate or invite is a more embodied practice of that, where you're not just neurotically repeating affirmations, where it's just happening in this cognitive part, but just notice, like, even if you could practice, like, you know, if one of your affirmations is, I am lovable, can you notice, like, what would it feel like to align your nervous system, to align every cell of your body with the energy of I am love itself, right? Like just noticing that in more embodied practice, and what images support that, what sounds and playlists and smells support that, so that it's a more embodied practice. But then you might discover, like, oh, there's this part that comes up and says, no, that's not true. Or there's this block to it. That's an indication that you might need to go in and do some digestion work with the block, go down and in. So it's not one then the other, but it's a simultaneous descending path and ascending path. And the reason that I titled the book Always Enough, Never Done is it's just that. You are always and already enough, lovable, worthy, and inextricably connected to every other living thing on this planet, just as you are. And just feel that, you know, just engage with that in your heart and in your body. You're always and already enough. And we all have work to do. We all have undigested stuff. We all have layers of grief or trauma, not to mention ancestral trauma that we're all carrying around. We all have not so pretty parts of us that show up. And if we don't look at that, we will cause harm. So we are always enough. And this is a lifelong process of emerging transformation and growth.
Right. I mean, and I like how you put there when we try to create the feelings. Growing up in special places like childhood trauma, and you want to say, I am lovable, when you haven't experienced love before, how do you make that transfer into I am lovable when you're trying to think, am I lovable? I don't know.
Right.
Nobody's really loved me before that I can see. And now I'm,
Yeah.
65 or however old you're, 28. And so how do we take that, what we read then, and then say, okay, that's why I think you need counseling and that's why you need coaching, because
Right.
really, if you don't know how that feels and
That's right.
you try to feel it, then you get even more, you read a book, right? And then you get more discouraged because you read a book, you didn't get what you really always wanted out of it. So then, you take what you've learned and then you get with someone that really can work with you and then make that transformation. And
That's
that's
right.
why I just feel, Erica, that you have to, if once you've experienced childhood trauma, you're either going to stay there or and be stuck and have those limiting beliefs, or you can, because I read for 25 years before I really started getting therapy and coaches and stuff, and I've made so much more progress since I have people to help me who actually know about it. So that's
Right.
why I'm so happy to be doing this summit, is to bring people like yourself here so that people can say, look, I would like to feel worthy. I would like to feel loved. I would like to have the confidence to become a CEO, but I just don't. I just don't have
Yeah.
it.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So there's kind of two parts, I think, to what I want to just respond to with that. And the first is, yeah, convincing. I don't know if you've ever tried to convince your children of something or your friends of some, you could sit there and say, no, you're great. You're lovable just as you are, but it doesn't really work. Convincing doesn't really work. And so my lovely son, who is now 14, has given me permission to share this story. And he's a pretty high gifted kiddo. It's like he was like born with perfectionism running in his veins, right? And so when he was 5, he would like kind of hit himself in the head and he's like, I'm so stupid, I'm so stupid, I'm so stupid. And of course, every bone in my mama body wanted to jump into convincing, right? Wanted to be like, Charlie, you are 5 and you are doing algebra. You are not stupid. How could you possibly think you are stupid? And guess how effective that was? Not at all.
Right.
That is, even though it's well meaning, we're actually coming at it. And we can do this with ourselves and our self talk. We're coming at, it's an at energy. Even if we're like, I'm lovable, you're love. No, oh, yes, I am. No, I'm not. It's an at energy. And what that needs actually is to come alongside with. And so when I could say, Charlie, I can't let you hit yourself. I'm not going to let you hit yourself. I'm going to hold your hands, but tell me about that, right? Tell me about the part of you that feels stupid.
Right.
Where does that show up in your body? How is it here? I can hold over here. You can say like, I can hold over here that you're a human being and that maybe you made a mistake or that you're learning. We're all learning. And that, I really don't believe that you are stupid over here. But it seems like this is a really painful place to be, right? So you see how as you do that, and as I would do that, his body would soften. He would start to get more into the sadness of it rather than the panic and like the anger at himself. He would get more into the sadness. And then I'd be like, it's really hard, honey. It's really hard to believe that I'm right here with you. And, how can we be kinder to yourself in this moment? How can we help you learn from it? Right. And then it would digest and move through. Right. And so same with ourselves. If you have a little part that believes you are unlovable, which, by the way, when we are children, we have to believe that it is about us. So if you have abusive parents, or if you were, had an abusive adult in your life. You are a little kid. And so you have to believe that it is about you. And that actually does two things for you. It gives you a sense of power because if it is about you, you can do something to change it. I know I'll become a therapist. I know I'll track people really well and I'll be able to tell what they need and I will shapeshift myself and I'll give it to them. I will become the best people pleaser on the planet. I will become so empathic that I can tap into other people's pain. It gives you a sense of power. If it's about you, you can do something to change it. And it also allows you to attach to the adult, which we need to attach in order to survive. Those adults are your access to food, shelter, water. And so as a kid, we have to maintain the fantasy that they are safe and predictable and lovable people on some level. Even if we know that something's not right, we have to attach to them. So if it is about us, we can maintain that fantasy and we can attach to them, right? You would like, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I mean,
Yeah.
I
And so
think,
like even the belief that you're unlovable was adaptive for you. It allowed you to survive. But we have to go down and toward and in and through and come alongside that part. Like, oh, I know, honey, I know that, our inner parts, like, I know that you had to believe that. It's so painful to believe that you were unlovable. It was adaptive for you. I'm with you. Me, the adult self, you
right.
belong to me now, and I'm going to learn how to take really good care of you.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it. You got to go. You can't convince yourself. You got to go alongside it.
Well, and
And
that's
the
the one
other
thing that
thing,
I want to say, really,
yeah,
Eric, that he was experiencing love at that moment. When
yeah,
if
sure.
and there's so many of us that we didn't have that person to say, what's going on in your life right now, what is happening, and giving you
Right.
that love, right? I mean, so many times it would say,
Safe love. Yeah,
yeah, it would be like, just go sit down, or you cry
sure.
and I'll give you something to cry about. And those types of things
Right.
really stick with you.
Oh,
And
for sure.
so many times, if you're in that environment, is that you don't know that that's not normal as a child. So
That's
what
right.
you do
Yeah.
is you build this wall and you build this way to say, okay, this happens when I do this. So let me figure out how to not make that happen again. So you create these beliefs that I'm doing the right thing by people pleasing, or I'm doing the right thing by, just obeying everything that I'm not saying that I'm hungry, right? I'll just be hungry for a while till somebody says, okay, it's time for dinner. And and as you grow
Right.
older and you say, oh my gosh, you realize that that wasn't a normal childhood, and you start to read and you start to read about how life is different. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I read See You at the Top. I read it and I'm like, that's a life. I never dreamed that the book that I
Mm.
just read was even imaginable. So
Yeah.
that's why I got into all this stuff that we're talking about
Yeah.
and part of this summit. And
Right.
it's just a way of realizing that, you know, I know I had a therapist one time, he'd say, how old do you think you were, or how old do you think you are when you're doing this now, Jamie? And you go back and you think, oh wow, that was probably 13. I probably am acting like a 13-year old, even though I'm 50 now, right? Because
Right.
you just get stuck in that particular mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And
And
it's so beautiful though when we can, you know, it's hard. Trauma work is hard.
oh,
There's a reason. You can go to therapy for years and years and years and still stay swimming on the surface of what happened in your week, right? And there's a reason that not a lot of people go down and in because it's hard. But on the other side of that, you free up all of this energy to move past like just repression and compression and white knuckling and surviving. And you alchemize all of that and you free up all of this energy of you have so much more spaciousness and liberation and self-compassion. And yeah, I mean, I think there are parts of this that you can do, on your own, but there are really most of the, especially the trauma work part. This is why I'm not really worried about AI taking over my job because something AI might be able to tell you all the right things, but sometimes not. AI is a people pleasing model. So it's going to tell you what you want to hear. And but most importantly, AI, like this resonance, like you and me, I am, even though we're online, I feel your energy with me. Hopefully you feel my energy with you.
Yes.
And having that resonant nervous system, that attuned nervous system, where you feel like my attention is with you, I'm tracking you, you're understood, there's a warmth here, there's a heart here, and there's a regulated nervous system here
Right.
holding you in the pain. And we need that. And there are two main qualities of healthy trauma work. One, you have to bring in the body. If you're just sitting up here in positive thinking and only trying to change your stinking thinking, and that is not going to get at the root of where it is stored. So we've got to bring in the body, and we have to bring in compassion, both self-compassion and the compassion that hopefully your therapist feels with you and holds with you. And that's not just, me being like nicey nice therapist with my paisley shawl and my little cup of chamomile. Like, you really need to be nicer to yourself. Like, no, this is actually a physiological change that happens in your body. When we have resonance, when we have compassion, that is a necessary ingredient that actually helps to alchemize. We learn to regulate our nervous systems, to regulate emotion through healthy, attuned attachment. And even if we don't have big T trauma, even if we don't have big T abuse or, a parent that struggled with an addiction or a volatile parent or sexual abuse or went through war or whatever, even if we don't have big T trauma, many of us have the missing experience of a parent that can just be with us in the emotion and show up with a regulated nervous system. I mean, that's a missing experience for my kids sometimes because I'm out here doing the best that I can. I'm unhealed in many ways still, even though I've done a lot of work. And I hope my kids feel my regulated system most of the time, right? But sometimes, when they're throwing tantrums about something that I deem as ridiculous, like, not having blueberry cream cheese in the fridge when they want it, I turn into this dysregulated person, and I'm like, "Did you know how spoiled you are?" Like, and rather than like, I know it's really disappointing to not have the cream cheese. Sometimes we have to like have our second choice, right?
Right.
And so the missing experience of that resonant, attuned nervous system is a missing experience for many of us. And we have to learn how to be that for ourselves and for each other.
And so many times, even though yes, we grow, but then we haven't experienced that. And then so it's making that transformation through study and through compassion and through working with people that you realize that, well, this kind of worked and this worked, but maybe in this a little bit of time, in this one instance, that I was a little bit too energetic, we'll say, in correcting someone or trying to help you
Mm.
say, okay, this is the way that is a way that is comfortable and safe to act in this in your household and in your community.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think getting consent, like if you're ever about to give advice, um, and I'm still learning this with my kids. I'm pretty good with my clients, but for some reason with my kids, it shows up differently, right? Like if they come to me with a problem, I'm really trying to get in the habit of, do you want perspective? Do you want ideas? Or do you just need me to shut up and listen?
Right. And
And, I think that is trauma informed practice number one is like, what do you really need right now? And if you want, I have ideas, but maybe right now you just need me to be holding space for you. And sometimes that's like really what people need in that moment.
and I think Erica that because we read a lot. I mean, I used to think you just tell me what you're experiencing. And based on the books that I've read, I'm going to tell you how to get through that. Instead of just saying, do you just want me to listen? Like you just said, you just want me to listen. And people, they don't always, and as men, we think, okay, you have a problem, let us solve it.
Yeah,
Instead of just,
right.
and just
Right.
instead of saying, I'm here to listen for as long as you want me to listen.
Right. Right.
And that is love and that is compassion. And that's what the world needs, and
Yeah.
you don't realize sometimes that love will overcome many, many things. If you can just live in a loving environment and know that if this happens in your life, you will still be loved.
Mhm.
That, to me, I mean, if
Mhm.
I were 5 years old and know that if this happened, I would still be loved, I
Yeah.
think, my life would be different because I would take more risks, right?
Yeah.
And I would be able to say, hey, no matter what, I have this group of people that is still going to love me. And if you have that,
And what I would even say beyond that is like not even just that you are loved, but that you are love.
right,
like that is our true nature.
yeah,
And that way we have that internalized sense of it, that we have this never ending resource, regenerative, renewable resource of love, because that's our true nature. And yes, it's beautiful. And we want to create communities where we also get that reflected back to us, where we are loved by another person, by an outside source. But it's kind of disempowering when we are like, if we're looking outside of ourselves first all of the time. So, yes, you are loved, whether that's universal love, spiritual love. Hopefully, you have people in your life that you will find love. But my invitation would be to tap into you are love, not just loved or lovable. You are the energy of love, and nothing and no one can take that from you. That is your true nature.
right. Yeah, and it is true that when you get taught things, not that you aren't loved, right? Because you go through experiences and you're like, well, I know that I am loved, but I just didn't receive it at that moment. And if you can look at
Totally.
them as it's not that I'm not lovable, it's that in that moment it didn't seem like I was being loved, but really I was, in as much as that particular person could show.
Right. And to remember that your parents or whoever it was, not to justify the behavior. We're very clear on, abuse is wrong. It's morally wrong. It's not okay. We're never going to say that it was okay. It's very important to have that stance, and that, you could have been born the perfect baby. You probably were, you're just normal human baby with normal human needs or normal human toddler behavior. And you could have been born the little baby Jesus himself, or the little baby Buddha himself, or Mother Teresa herself, or whatever. And your parents still could not have attached or shown up with a regulated system because of their own unhealed trauma.
Right,
And likely your grandparents' unhealed trauma and their parents' unhealed trauma, right? Like that, it wasn't about you. And I think it's really important that like we hold a both and, is like, yes, you are love. Try to tap into that. And it also makes a lot of sense if there are parts of you that don't believe that yet, that still hold that you're not lovable, or believe that you're a piece of crap, or believe that you're not enough, or believe that you are inherently broken, because that is a normal human story to tell yourself based on a really terrible thing that happened. And, it's really important to ask yourself, rather than, Gabor Mate talks about, like, it's not about asking what's wrong with you. It's about asking what happened to you
right,
and what did you do to adapt to that? What were the stories that you told yourself? What were the patterns that your body held on to adapt to that? And what needs to be alchemized and digested and composted for fertile soil, for for who you really want to be, who you really want to show up as in your fullest expression.
right. Well, I think in your book you talk about the kaleidoscope metaphor. That's
Yeah.
might be a good time to transform into that because it's about what we're talking about.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Good, good transition there, Jamie. I like that one. Yeah, so I talk about the kaleidoscope, and I love this metaphor because it really gets at that always enough, never done. So, right now, you are in this iteration of the kaleidoscope, and we can think about this individually, within relationships, and even in the larger collective. Like it feels really hard and heavy and it's kind of rough out here in these streets, right? But we are in this iteration and we can't be in any other iteration than we are right now. And it's exactly as it needs to be, right? We're in this iteration. And then we start to look at the shadows and we start to look at the not so pretty parts of ourselves and we start to compost. And it's kind of like when we start to turn that kaleidoscope and then these colors start to fade and the patterns start to change. And then we're in this iteration of ourselves, right? And it's this ever emergent, ever turning, things are composting, birth and death, right? Like, and we're just constantly emerging because this iteration that you're in right now is enough and whole and perfect just as it is. And there might be skins that you need to shed and patterns that no longer serve you and layers of the work that, I've done a lot of EMDR myself and trauma reprocessing and parts work and even psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. I've done a lot of work. And then but there's still layers of it. There's still moments where I'm like, oh, there's still that not enough part, right? But instead of being like, God, after all this therapy, why is this still here? Go away, right? Instead of getting into that trap, I'm much better at catching it and being like, oh, there you are again, honey. It's okay. I know it's really old. It's really old. And I'm here and I've got you. You belong to me now. And I'm gonna I know that got in and it hurt. And so what do we need to do to come alongside that? Now, it is really common for people to come to me or to start some sort of trauma therapy. And, I'll say something like compassion or self-compassion, or can you greet that? Can you come alongside that? And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know how to do that. I don't like this part of me. I think she's weak, or I don't like it. And so it takes some time, and that's really normal to not be able to greet yourself with self-compassion. So in that case, I would recommend starting with neutrality. Can you just go for neutral with yourself? Like you're just a human being out here with the rest of us. I like to I often think of grown-ups as like we're all just like little kids in our grown-up clothes, pretending like we know what we're doing, but we're all just little kids walking around doing the best that we can out here. And if you can't get to neutrality, then how about you just try to be a little less of an asshole to yourself today, right? Just a little, just turn down the critic a little bit and see what's there,
I mean, I remember, in the Bible it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I used to think, well, I want to love them more than that. Right? I want to love them more than I love me. And
Yeah.
and it takes therapy and it takes time to go from there to here. And like you said, I'm still on a journey to love myself more,
Yeah.
but I love myself better now than I did a year ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna live to be 140, and I'm gonna be and so in love with myself by then.
I
It's
love it.
it's gonna
I love it.
irradiate to the universe and to
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the more that we can radically accept that this is a nonlinear, messy process, you can be like, oh, I'm healing. I'm so close. Oh, my mom triggered me again. And now I'm like, and then you're like, no, I'm doing breath work now and yoga and I'm doing some EMDR. And it's like, oh, I'm right back at the beginning. That's human. And I don't know if you know the poet John O'Donohue, but he talks about, humans, the human experience is one face towards our divinity, whatever your, spiritual practices, if it's nature, if it's just the universe, whatever, just something bigger than yourself. One face is towards our divine self, our true nature, but one face is towards our human self. And we're here to have a human experience, and we're here to just be okay with the messiness of it, to find beauty in the messiness of it, to deconstruct perfectionism. I really view perfectionism as a collective trauma response that it's undigested pain. And so we double down on perfectionism and optics and making sure everything looks good. And really underneath that is all of this undigested shadow. And my view is that we are really seeing that undigested shadow really collectively play out right now.
Right. And I think that, it's just a matter of realizing that, one thing I realize these days, things didn't happen to me, they happened for me so that I could grow and become this person that I was created to be, instead of just this person that's living this life bitter. Right?
Yeah,
And so many times you see people that they're just so bitter in their life, and it's because they're not making that transformation into, you know, look, I am love, and this is happening to me for a reason so that I can become this person. And that really, to me, Erica, was one of the transformations in my life, is saying that, every time I make a little bit of progress, it may not be as much as I would like to, but I made a little bit of progress. I don't know
right.
if James Clear gets this, but he says if you only go 1% per day in improvement, somehow you end up 34% better than you were when you
That's right.
started.
Yeah, 300. Yeah, right, right.
So,
Yeah, and I'm kind of a both and girl when it comes to that. Like that, I think of things in lenses, right? So there's a lens of, yes, this isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. That's a real like spiritual high consciousness lens. But I think when somebody is really in the depths of the pain, that might not be the lens that they need to be given right at that moment. Right at that moment, they might need to be given the lens of like, yep, this was really hard and it was not okay that this person assaulted you or that this person touched you. Like that was, to be in it with the pain so that they, like we're in it with the pain so that that pain can be transmuted, and then maybe we can see the post traumatic growth, right? Then maybe we can make the meaning out of it. But in that moment, I want to be mindful, like if somebody is, if I'm coming to someone with like this really horrible thing happened to me, and they immediately offer, well, God's not, it's happening for you, like, or everything happens for a reason. My immediate response is like, they are uncomfortable with the pain that I'm in and they want to get out of it. They want to make it better. They want to fix it. And my invitation would be to slow that perspective down and be in the pain so that the pain can be alchemized so that we can start to see how it might be happening for you. And there are certain things that I think it's important to, not just to brush over or justify things like, well, everything happens for a reason. Like, no, let's address the problem
right.
and try to make that problem better. Let's look at the root of why abuse is happening in the first place, right? Why is violence happening in the first place? What needs to be addressed so that we get to the root of that rather than just going like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I think, Erica, that's why some people, they'll read a self-development book, and it's so straight. You set your goals, you work on it for this long, and you should get there, right? Or there's something in your life that's happening, and it would be like you just said, it happened for you, so just go with it and learn this lesson. And when you've had childhood trauma and you're trying to do that, you just get more bitter and angry. That's
That's
what
right. Because it's a spiritual bypassing at that point. Even though there's wisdom in that, there's absolutely wisdom in that whole idea of like um things happen for you, not to you, etc. But I think there's something before that that needs to be alchemized and really needs to be honored and have reverence for, right? The pain needs to be attuned to, needs to have reverence for. There's like sacred pain. And we might be gaslighting ourselves, really, right? We're like, well, it's happening for me, happening for me. Like, how do I get there? And then we can get into this, like, there's something wrong with me because I can't get to this point of seeing that it's happening for me when there's parts of me that are holding rage or holding the pain and the terror. And those parts need your attention and care, you know? And if I were to go to my son in this really his most painful place, and I would be like, well, everything happens for you, for your growth.
yeah.
That is really a misguided offering. Even though there's wisdom there, we have to be nuanced and mindful of how we are offering that wisdom and when we are offering that wisdom, because sometimes we just need to greet it where it is, both with others and with ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And that, I think that's one of the things when you read a typical non-emotional self-help book, right? It says just do it, kind of like the Nike, just do it. And you're
Right.
like, well,
Right.
a lot of times, when I just did it, I got in trouble, right? So how do I go
Totally.
from here to
Yeah.
here in what you're telling me? I need to be with someone that has a trauma lens that says, like that you're saying, well, what is going on in your body and in your mind right now that we can help you
Right.
with to get from here to here, and
Right.
and again, that is the love and the compassion that comes with a good therapist, a good mother. It's saying, I want to go back into time and have you my mother, but after this kind, but
Well, Mike, you might want to get a reference from my kids. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if they
But it's at least they're getting a, uh, an education in it, and when I think when somebody says love yourself, they will know what love yourself really is, and that's
Yeah.
and once you can start growing from there, then and again, in this life we're always on a journey, right?
Yeah.
People will say, hey, I'm going to feel like this. I mean, I'm 65 now, and I used to think, how does my grandfather feel? I still feel like a kid that maybe has a
Yeah.
little bit more wisdom, but I still have all of these things that have happened in my life and that I'm still growing through that
Yeah.
hasn't changed. And so
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
and that's again, the reason why you get in communities that you get into with a therapist that can help you, because I just don't believe, and that's something really I've just learned in the last few years, is that if I don't get help, I can't read enough to heal me. I
That's
realize,
right.
and
That's right.
but I can learn enough, I can get an idea, like in your book that's coming out, right? You read something and you say, I kind of do that, but I don't do this. And how could I get from here to here? And
Yeah.
the trauma books, those are just now coming out, right?
Totally.
When
Yeah.
I started in the self-development in 1995, it was just do it. And if you can't do
That's right.
it, then something is wrong with you, right?
You're doing it wrong. Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah. And I will just kind of champion my book a little bit because of course, it's a book and you're still reading it. But I do think something that's different about it is that there's a whole section of somatic resources and QR codes that link to me teaching those exercises on YouTube and such. And so that you can really see what I'm doing with my body. And there's an invitation for you to really practice some nervous system regulation strategies, because if you don't bring in the body, you're not going to have the capacity to do the digestion work. And that preparation work is something that I'm hoping to democratize therapy a little bit. Like, you can do a lot of the preparation, maybe some parts work on your own. But when you need digestion and when you need trauma work, you really do need that attuned nervous system. And, you know, therapists also put our coaching hat on. And then we also talk about when the timing is right. What is this new identity that you want to step into? What are the values that you want to be driving your next chapter? And champion really embodying that as well. So there's a lot of stuff you can do on your own, and I encourage you to check out the book, but you know, we all need an attuned nervous system in the room. Yeah.
I agree. Well, we've talked about the book, and we need to kind of wrap it up here a little bit. But
Yeah.
tell them how they can get the book, and then Erica, if you don't mind, I read about this somatic therapy all the time, but I really don't know exactly what it is and how to do
Yeah.
that. So if you could maybe do a little brief explanation on how your book addresses that, and then how they can get
Sure.
the book, I think we would have a really good segment here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So easy peasy where you get the book. You can either get it on Amazon, you know, just look up Always Enough, Never Done. But if you order it from me, from my website, then you get a signed copy. And I sign your name and mail it to you and put it in a pretty green envelope, and you have a signed copy. And that website is just avoscounseling.com, AVOS counseling.com. And you just look at the little tab for like Erica's book, I think it says, and you'll find it there. And I think I sent you the link to put it in show
Yeah,
notes or
and
however you're
we
going to do that.
can put it on we'll either send it to them, or I think we might be able to tap it on the screen as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Okay. And then somatic therapy, you know, that's a big question, but let me see if I can answer it. And so it's based on the idea that the body holds things, right? So like the first time you get like you hear a bomb go off and your shoulders go like this, and then they relax, and then it goes off again and they relax, and then okay, and then it goes off again and they stay there, right? And the pattern is stored. So you clench your belly over and over and over again. You shut down the emotions, and the emotions are stored in your body. And so you spend a lot of energy compressing yourself, right? Or repressing those things. And so somatic therapy is the idea that we have to sort of move a little bit. So there's a lot, and we have a vagus nerve that runs from our brainstem to our gut, and it is in charge of 75% of regulating your nervous system. It's in charge of heart rate. It plays a role in digestion. It plays a role in calming the flight or fight freeze response. So there's certain exercises that can stimulate the vagus nerve. So that's a lot of what I talk about in the book: twisting, shaking, wiping it off. There's a polyvagal reset that I talk about in the book. So there's tons of somatic, what we call polyvagal resources.
Mm-hmm.
But somatic therapy is really just the idea that these patterns are stuck in your body. So get weird, y'all. Like, put some music on, move your body, shake it through, move, dance. Like, that is the best way, just to intuitively feel what you're feeling in your body. Name it. I'm feeling rage. I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling sadness. And let your body move in a way that your intuition is telling you to do so. And it's going to free up a lot of stuck energy in your body.
Well, that energy can be used to just improve your life and
That's
to
right. And to step into leadership. Oh, full circle. To step into your fullest expression.
Right.
And the world needs your medicine. The world needs you here in your fullest light. And trauma, you're walking around with it anyway, honey. So get on in here, do the work. The water's fine. I promise there's liberation and light and spaciousness on the other side.
Well, Erica, thank you so much. I mean, I've learned a lot during our little time here together. So I'm hoping that, the people that have seen the segment and they think, well, if I just take this little bit and this little bit, I can move forward in my life. And that's what it's all about, is one step at a time. getting to this destination here, but you'll reach there at, you might not ever get there, but you'll get closer and closer and be
Yep.
able to be that kaleidoscope that we
That's right.
talk about.
That's right. That's right. Yes, same. I've learned a lot too, Jamie. I really appreciate our conversation and thanks for the beautiful work you're doing in the world and just shining your light and getting other people to shine their light. It's awesome.
Well, thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time. And make sure you guys buy the book. Bye bye, Erica.
Thanks, Jamie. Bye.
Bye bye.